Alright, so hello, my name is William. Well, alright. Well, today I'm talking about the housing bill that Donald Trump canceled signing. Yeah. So, it's called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. It's the United States federal statute that expands housing, but President Donald Trump did not veto it, and he refused to sign it. And it only became law on July 11th of this year. So, you can read all about it right here on Wikipedia, and there is the Congress right here. So yeah, it became law without a signature. So because Donald Trump refused to sign it, and he did not veto it either. So yeah, he canceled signing it. So why did he cancel signing it? Well, all because he cares about the Save America Act. And yeah, let me tell you something. Yes, I do want the Save America Act to pass, but this bill here got introduced before the Save America Act. See, it got introduced in December of this year. So let's read about this housing bill. All right. I'm on calmatters.org. I really want to see. I want to see what the housing bill means for California. All right, let's read about this. So the federal housing bill does a lot of things. Supports hope, but it did both California and national housing shortage. Yeah, and also, if you want to know, this housing bill is supported by both Democrats and Republicans. So, yeah, therefore, I believe I do support this housing bill. But, it's for Donald Trump canceled signing it. What to say about that, yeah. Anyway, I'll read the CalMatters website here because it's talking about it anyway. So welcome to CalMatters, the only nonprofit newsroom for covering issues affect all Californians. So sign up for what matters to reserve on the community of the important issues on the golden side. So the largest single piece in the federal housing industry that come out of Congress, at least a generation, is about to become law. It will happen middle of the night, without much fanfare, and be well before many Californians notice its effects. That's because the bill is politically monumental. It doesn't do a big thing. Instead, it does a lot of little things. Individually, none of the bill's 6 regular tweaks, pilot programs, and low-cost loans and grants are likely to move needle of the nation's housing affording woes, nor on California specifically. Supports of the collecting they just might. Even a lost path in enactment head under the path we are quality to it. The White House already canceled plan on signing the ceremony late last month. Yeah, with President Trump vowing not to lend a signature to the housing bill until Congress had passed the National Voter ID proposal. Yeah, I know, the Save America Act. Yeah. The bill stalls out in the Senate. On Friday, it vowed again not to sign the bill in protest. Even so, because Trump does not appear likely to veto the housing package, and it'll make it became law on Saturday just after midnight. Its past terms certified in the U.S. Constitution. For all that, supporters say, and this is a big deal, a major bipartisan piece of legislation aimed at boosting housing construction from hyperpartisan legislative body. And it doesn't typically touch the topic. It doesn't often gather to celebrate federal housing legislation. said Stephen Russell, president of the San Diego Housing Federation, and the press conference on Thursday. I think the last time Congress passed anything of this magnitude, many of you not even live, almost at the lifetime event. Thanks to the growing part of the caucus of the lawmakers, aligned Yes in My Backyard movement that pushed this bill into law, many hail from California, a state that has had more experience in contending the wildly unaffordable housing. But the cause of making housing more affordable, due to high housing costs and lack of sufficient supply, has become a national bipartisan concern. At this point, the bill originally proposed in the U.S. Senate. Tim Scott in South Carolina, Republican in Senate Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts, and a Democrat, one of the body's liberal members. When the constitutes part of the bill were relatively narrow, none of the specifically focused on California. Experts have highlighted a handful of new provisions that could leave a non-honorable imprint on the state. Build now or else. For high-cost cities that don't much but housing, of urban California, the federal bill includes another carrot and stick. The portion of the bill would challenge and would change the Community Development Block Grant, one of the largest sources of the federal funding of the affordable housing of the local development of the local development policy cities, defined through a variety of the data benchmarks and the median prices of the vacancy rates. With a track record under building of the continuously below average housing construction will be great funds cut by 10%. The savings will go to the municipal counterparts that build in a faster clip. It's likely to have replications at cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco that have traditionally lagged behind initially housing supply, said David Garcia, an independent director of the U.S. Berkeley's Turner Center of the Housing Innovation. The city of L.A. received $48.4 million in the last award from the Block Grant Program in 2024. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development data, in San Francisco received $18.9 million. Those numbers are enough to make or break a budget of either city. I think this will be a small nudge, said Laura Foote, executive director of Unify Action, and in an email with taken across the country, we could have a good impact. The nudges add up. For more dramatic numbers at dollars involved in the precedent and policy sets, even in California, where the state government aggressively incentive cities to plan more housing development and penalize the house that don't, lawmakers have never punished municipalities for failing to actually grow an outcome that may not always be under a city government's control. Such an idea would have been conceivable for city previous congresses, said Garcia. Despite that, a provision hasn't engendered much public pushback from the local government groups yet. In the online summary, Michael Wallace, a lobbyist of the National League of Cities, applauded overall housing bill as an example of the federal government choosing partnership with local governments and implementations to single out of the provisions of that provide flexibility of development backup spending, new incentive programs, new supply, and new supports of local urban planning. So, chassis change. Okay, so chassis change. Manufactured housing units are referred as mobile homes. They tended to move around much. but the stimulus lines were shipped that were intended. The nationally affordable houses, the likes of which lawmakers across California and the United States claim that we need in droves, were often placed in the permanent foundations where fewer and 1 in 10 ever move again. Even so, the federal building code applied to manufactured housing includes a costly vestigial reference to its mobile origins, the permanent chassis. A giant steel frame of removable axles and wheels. The chassis ostensibly exists to make it easier to pick up, and the manufactured house by truck and practice. It serves as a 10 to 12 inch thick floor beneath the floor because it cannot be removed upon delivery. It just serves a dead space and wasted money, said Jess Maxey, the president of the California Manufactured Housing Institute. The Institute trade group, aside of the adding thousands of dollars in added cost per unit, and makes it harder manufacturing units stacked into a double story with a multi-family apartment buildings. Alright. The federal housing bill removes the permanent chassis requirement, something that manufacturers and housing policy experts have been pushing since the mid-1980s. The relatively minor change, the expand of the cost of the affordable home ownership available. 7% of Scott Peters, a San Diego Democrat. At a Thursday press conference, Maxey said he didn't expect the end of the chassis requirement to trigger overnight. A building boom in the manufactured home industry, especially in California, where due to high price of land, new single-family homes and we're more likely to build stacked on small lots. Regulatory change provides more opportunities that help us reduce the price. So recovery after the disaster. In the months after the natural disaster, long emergency federal dollars have come and gone. Alright. So Congress has provided communities with long-term rebuilding grants through the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program. Over 3 decades, the program has spent more than $100 billion on a long-term work of recovery, like home construction, infrastructure repair, and retail relocation assistance. The money tends to reserve for low-income people and communities who are not going to bounce back without the funds, said Marion McFadden, who used to use the program under Biden administration and now works in disaster preparation recovery consulting company IAM. Unfortunately for California, the program only kind of exists since the mid-1990s. It has been stood up and funded on the ad hoc basis on appropriation bill at a time. That represents a change of communities' planning of the post-disaster planning. It also means the rules of governor program, when the money goes out, the whom of under the conditions of the what purposes. The what drafted of the political administration, it has the effect on slowing things down considerably. No program funding has gone to Los Angeles in the wake of 25 firestorms, according to the Carnegie Endowment International Peace. Congress has yet to appropriate any. A new housing bill will officially write the program into law for at least 3 years, and it creates ability for HUD to have the money hand before a disaster, then make a decision for 15 days about whether they're going to provide funding, said McFadden. What the housing bill doesn't do is actually provide any fresh funding. The censor-prone communities will need to wait for Congress to take it up later. The bottleneck removed. For the last 2 decades, the public housing authorities in Los Angeles and Bay Area have been turning a federal retail assistance demonstration program to help repair and upgrade the aging stock, increasing it and pay it to public housing. The program works by switching up funding and sources in the way that locks more flexibility and borrow money and attract private investment dollars. Until July 11th at midnight, the federal government was only authorized to permit 455,000 of these conversions. The new bill raises up the cap another 100,000. But this has been a bottleneck in California for years, and that bottleneck just got removed, said Russell with San Diego Housing Federation. Not all affordable housing advocates are chilling development. The National Low Income Housing Coalition, is consisting of opposed expansion of the program on the grounds that change of funding of the source could weaken existing intended protections. It's clear whether an extent that it might be true. A study from last year found no evidence that convictions under that program need more evictions. So Wall Street out of the suburbia. Okay, Wall Street out of the suburbia. Okay, I heard the only one thing of the housing bill and bans larger to do investors from laying up more of the single-family homes. Confutes apply of the evasion of the law The bill defines large as any number of the business structures to control with more than 250 single housing homes. It doesn't apply respectively, and some current investors with portfolios bringing up with housing does not devised. Extension exists with new construction, interventions of senior housing. In California specifically, where corporations and major investors do not a significant role in the housing market, where effect can be muted. Alright, so let's see. The measure takes a hyper-sentient issue for the lots of people in the country and does pre-modalist intervention at excessive, said Chen Macio, a fellow liberal-leaning for Center American Progress, former senior advisor of President Biden. Even so, the provision of the primaries appeal earlier this year, Trump has been an even stricter crackdown on so-called corporate landlords. Governor Gavin Newsom follows suit in the same week. After bill bent provision, it was left cutting on the room floor of Congress. Senator Aisha Hope, a former Democrat who is now running in Congress, introduced a bill that picked up back again. SB 880 would have been banned, below the sale of the single-family homes, strengthening of the build and rent of the business bond model. The bill died in the Assembly Judiciary in late June. All right, so that's the federal. That's what they had. So that's a new federal housing bill. That means for California anyway. That's the article right here. Anyway, so to me, I believe I support this new federal housing bill. Yeah, it became law, and yes, I know it became law without a signature because Donald Trump has refused to sign it anyway, and he did not veto it either, so that's why. So yeah, but I'm glad this housing bill is now law anyway. Even though Yeah, I know. Even though Donald Trump chose not to sign it, and that's fine. Well, I don't know. You can let me in the comments below. Oh yeah, I know, and I know the kid. Yes, I know the Kids Act has passed the House, but it's not over yet. So, anyway, you can still help California on these on the. You can look at the news right here. You can also help the campaigns on California, right here, and also yeah, the 20th Century Rural Housing Act becomes law. It's right here. See, you can read more about it right here if you want to. Anyway. Anyway, so that's the housing bill. Anyway, let me know if you like this housing bill on the comments below. Anyway, I don't know what Steve Hilton thinks about that. Let's see. Or Xavier Becerra. Please see. The new federal housing bill. Okay, so there's no information regarding Xavier Becerra's special views on the new housing bill. Yeah, okay, so you have like a housing bill act. Okay, yeah, so of the new housing prices. Yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, he has no information about it. But what about Steve Hilton then? Does Steve Hilton Yeah, okay, so Steve Hilton didn't have an opinion about the new housing bill. Well, the contents and competence of the okay for the housing bill, Hilton has proposed a state-level incentives to California's housing crisis and capping taxes of housing for younger families argues to cover your dream. The board takes that the housing proposal next of the income tax of the housing lowest income rates of the nation. Okay, so that's why. Okay, so Silverstone does not first a red cut tape of housing units revealing of the housing costs of our families. Okay, and ownership. Okay, so that's just it. But I'll talk about the new housing bill, so that's why. And that's so let's see what Steve Hilton thinks about it. Steve Hilton thinks it will not do much. Okay, Stephen believes the new federal housing bill will not bring down housing, and Costa disagrees on federal involvement, arguing micromanaging regulations of Washington parts of the housing problem went wrong on issues instead of being funded at the state level. Discuss similar federal intervention. He maintains the federal government should have less involvement in housing. Deduction. He stated that it does not see the federal administration doing lower housing expenses, and then the state he believes that it's a handled of the state level of the federal micromanagement, and October was cutting the red tape. It's on focus on regulations of review restrictions at state level, and the views of starter homes. Development fees, expanding construction of single-family starter homes. So, yeah, alright. So, hopefully you... So, let me know if you like this housing bill. It's called the 25th Century Road and Housing Act. And the number is called HR 6644. Yeah, that's the number for it of that bill that just became law anyway. So if you like this new housing bill, you can let me know in the comments below. Anyway, yeah. And if you want to fight against IDH-ification, just call your representatives in Congress and say no, and attempt to vote no on these bad bills over here. Anyway. And you can watch my How to Go to Heaven video on Rumble. Or BitChute, anyways. Alright, so I don't know what we'll be talking about next video anyway, but I did talk about the housing bill, so yeah. And I'll get into Prop 43, which is will be stopping tax hikes and protecting Prop 13. I'll get into that in a different video anyway, but yeah, I have to go right now. But yeah, what I'm gonna say is, yeah, thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. So goodbye. Adios and yeah, Zaijian.